Croeso friends, welcome back to Opus Elenae, where I have been lying to you. Let me explain. It's winter in Texas, which means that we are currently in the 3 weeks of the year it's cold enough to wear sweaters. And maybe it's just my inner librarian, but I love a button-down shirt and sweater moment. Even in winter, Texas isn't quite cold enough to wear that many layers, especially inside. And not only that, but my stunning fashion sense often rubs up against my ridiculous sensory issues in uncomfortable ways. Button-down shirts feel bulky under sweaters and bunch up unflatteringly, and nothing lays quite right. But I found a solution, and it's even historically informed. A partlet is a garment that dates back to the late 15th century. It's a sleeveless garment designed to cover the neck and shoulders, sometimes worn under a dress and sometimes over. You may recall that I made one a while ago, inspired by Tudor English and Flemish fashion. The partlet doesn't just disappear after the Renaissance, though. It surfaces again in the 1700s in the form of a fichu, which is less of a truncated shirt and more of a kerchief or shawl tucked into the neckline of a dress. It serves a similar purpose, though. During the Regency era, the half-shirt style made a reappearance. Now called a chemisette, it served to increase modesty, making evening dresses wearable during the day. That trend continued into the Victorian era for men as well as women, as a way to give the appearance of a shirt without the bulk at arms or waist. Even into the 20th century, false shirts, now known as dickeys, continued to be available and even popular, especially during the Second World War when cloth rationing forced economy of dress. So everyone go grab your cuppa. Today I am drinking Snow Day by Friday Afternoon Teas. It's one of their seasonal blends, a black tea with chocolate and hazelnut and just a hint of cinnamon. It's exactly what I want after coming in from the cold. Let's get into it. First things first, I'll need a pattern. I'm using the Wren blouse pattern, which you can get for free on Mood Fabrics, and I'll put the link in the description, of course. It's a relatively simple pattern for a button-down shirt. The collar is all in one piece instead of having a separate band and collar like most button-downs do. I just learned this trick of putting together printable patterns. Instead of cutting off the entire margin, you just cut off the corners and align the marks that way. This pattern is simple enough that I can just eyeball the parts that are covered by the margins, but it might not work as well for a more complex pattern. Once I find my size, and I love that this pattern has such a wide size range, and trace it with a marker to make sure I stay consistent when I cut things out, I can decide how long I want my partlet to be, about an inch below the arm side, excluding seam allowance, and cut off the excess. I'm just going to ignore the bust dart in the front since I want the hem to hit right above it and I don't see the point in complicating things. Historically, partlets and chemisettes didn't have a side hem, they tied under the arms or were pinned in place. I figure I'll try it with the seam since the pattern's already built for that, and if it fits weirdly, I can always alter it later to be tied instead. Time to cut up the fabric. Should I have done a mock-up? Yeah, probably, but the amount of fabric used is fairly minuscule, so I'm just going to treat one of them as a wearable mock-up, and we'll see if I have to go back to the pattern drawing board. Spoiler, I don't. Sometimes hubris works out. This purpley gray fabric that is my favorite color in the entire world is the same one that I used to make a dress in the Soft Apocalypse series. I wanted to see if I could eke the partlet out of offcuts from that dress, and I totally did. I'm back to using tailor's chalk after learning that my not so trusty friction pens can discolor and start showing up again after exposure to UV light. I haven't had it happen yet, but better safe than sorry, I think. This black lawn is so sheer, it's almost a gauze. I'm worried that it won't stand up to wear and tear in the long run and may just remake this one later if it becomes necessary. The white lawn is luckily a little sturdier, more similar in weight to the gray. This one will last forever if I'm careful. I did sew these one at a time because I didn't feel like constantly changing out my thread, but I'm going to group each step of the process together, showing each stage in all 3 colors because I know I'd be bored to tears if I watched each partlet get made separately. I don't usually love fusible interfacing, but it's the easiest option to stiffen the collars and button bands. I'm not stiffening both white collar pieces, it was just closer to hand than the black. I'm also going to make a rounded Peter Pan type collar on the gray just to have a bit of variety of shape. First up, sewing the collars and then clipping the seam allowances and turning them right side out. After a quick pressing, seriously, is there anything more satisfying than a crisply ironed shirt collar? They can be set aside while I assemble the partlet bodies. I'll pin and then sew the pieces together at the shoulders and side seams, and each section is so short that I don't even bother to cut the thread in between each seam. I just start the next piece immediately and cut them apart at the end. Off camera, I added strips of fusible interfacing to the front edges and pressed the folds into the button band shape. The collar doesn't come to the very edge of the shirt, so I'm going to hem the top of the band by folding the strip back on itself, keeping the smaller hem folded in and sewing across the top of the band. Then I can clip the corner and turn it right side out, and the top of the band will have a nice finish. Then I'll sew the button band into place down the front. I don't want to pull out the serger for 12 tiny seams, so I just decided to flat fill the seam allowances, and since this is a modern style shirt, I'm not fussed about the machine stitching showing. I'll then finish the arm size with a tiny rolled hem. Thank you to all of my current and continuing Ko-fi members, especially my newest member, Lady Navarra. Your support and the support of all of my members and croissants makes it easier to do what I do and provide quality content for everyone. Thank you so much. Stick around after this brief commercial break to see the finished partlets. Time to get the collars back out and attach them. This is a fairly straightforward process. The marks line up with the shoulder seams and the ends meet the button band. Also one side of the collar to the shirt and then iron that seam away from the shirt side. Then I can fold the other side of the collar inward and sew it down, encasing those raw edges. Again, I'm choosing to machine stitch because it's quick and that particular seam isn't going to be super visible anyway. Once I've given the collars a good pressing to make sure they're laying correctly, I'll hem the partlets with a simple double folded hem. I'm hauling out my modern machine for the buttonholes because I have not yet managed to get my hands on a featherweight buttonhole kit. One of these days. The most annoying part is that they take 2 different styles of bobbin, so I've always got 2 for each thread. After the buttonholes are cut, I'll use them as a guide for marking where the buttons should go. Then I can sew those on with sturdy buttonhole thread, et voila! As always, thanks for coming along with me. I am going to get a ton of wear out of these modern partlets, at least until it warms back up again. If you enjoy this channel and want to support it, you can do that monetarily on my Ko-fi or for free by sharing this video with your friends. Also, come join my Discord. The link is in the description. It's a great place to be. If you want to see what a historical partlet looked like, check out this video to see me make one, and if you're interested in more of my modern makes, check out this playlist instead. Until next time, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. Hwyl.